morning, everybody. Today I have a special video for you. I am not going to be covering the Fiber Fueled book, the Fiber Fueled breakdown series that we're doing. I'm actually going to be diverging just a smidge off topic, still about gut health and still about the microbiome, but I'm going to be focusing on what alcohol does to your gut health and how it affects your gut health. Over the weekend, I went to Vegas to celebrate a dear friend's birthday, and while I was there, some drinking happened, and I tried my best to eat as healthily as I could. Ever since I found out all that information about the community that lives inside our body, I've been more conscious about the things that I eat and the things that I put in my body. Of course, when it came to Vegas, that was a different story. I am a little bit sick, and I think it is because of the drinking, the flying, everything together has put me in this state. I'm overcoming it. But believe you me, I feel a lot better than I sound, okay? So I will be drinking my tea occasionally, and as usual, I have my notes in my lab so I can cover this topic as best as I can. I found a really great article on New York Times called "How Does Alcohol Affect Gut Microbiome?" I was doing research because when I was drinking, I was like, I wonder how this is affecting. Obviously, we know that alcohol affects your body and gives you a feeling, or it's a depressant, honestly, alcohol is, but I wanted to know how it specifically affected the microbiome. I want to make a point here that the article does focus on people who drink heavily and regularly, okay? So I am going to give you all that information, and I'm going to give you some more information at the end about people who drink lightly and not regularly. So I'm going to jump right into the video now. People who drink heavily and regularly, they often have an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. I'm going to assume that they have a higher percentage or a higher level of bad bacteria in their gut, just because alcohol is not very conductive to the health, right? This is called dysbiosis, or dysbiosis. Comment below. Comment below if I got that wrong. It is generally associated with a greater inflammation and dis-ease compared to having a healthier microbiome. So when there's a disbalance of good and bad microbiome in the body, it is definitely associated with greater inflammation because you have a higher concentration of bad bacteria in the body, which we all knows that means an inflamed body. Okay, so unhealthy, remember, unhealthy plus bad bacteria equals inflamed body. Unhealthy food, unhealthy drinks, plus the bad bacteria equals an inflamed body. Okay, I'm glad we all remember that. That's amazing. Okay, so they also have leakier or permeable intestine lining. And as we learned previously in our last breakdown, that means leaky gut. A healthier gut lining acts as a barrier between the interior of the intestine, which is full of microbes, food, and potentially harmful toxins. So when you have a healthy microbiome, they line your intestinal walls and they protect it from anything that could get into your bloodstream and anything coming in. So it protects you, but when you have an imbalance and less healthy microbiome, there's less lining in that intestinal wall. So it makes it more permeable and it leads to leaky gut. Moving on. When there is a break in the lining of the gut, bacteria and toxins can escape into the bloodstream and flow to the liver, which can cause liver inflammation and damage. All in all, alcohol is not good for you. Alcohol does a lot to the brain and it does a lot to the body. I'm not saying don't drink alcohol, I'm not a prude, but just be aware of the consequences, really, of having alcohol on a daily or regular basis. Okay, so it goes on to talk about how in a preliminary research, it shows that an unhealthy gut might even contribute to alcohol cravings. Okay, so this was really fascinating for me to find out because as we know, typically parasites that hide in our body and try to remain undetected also contribute to cravings that we may have for unhealthy things. But the microbiome in our body, if they are unhealthy, if there's a larger percentage of them that are unhealthy, can actually contribute to cravings to alcohol, cravings to unhealthy foods, cravings to unhealthy drinks. That blew my mind because I always imagined it was more the parasites, but the microbiome also contribute greatly to the cravings we have for unhealthy things. If you ever get an intense craving, imagine there's a community of unhealthy microbiome. If anything, there's probably a rise of them that sort of urge that craving. It intensifies that cravings. Feed us this food, give us energy. If you imagine it that way, it's it changes your brain a lot, because now you're like, I don't really want to feed those guys because they're not really helping me. So if there is a rise of unhealthy microbiome that feed off of alcohol, you're gonna feel those intense cravings for alcohol. Okay, so for people who drink less, for myself personally, I don't drink very often, so this one related to me a lot. So there's very little research on how the amount of alcohol affects the gut microbiome. Frankly, I don't think they've dived really deeply into it, but with the knowledge that we already have, if you are feeding your body unhealthy foods, then you are feeding unhealthy microbiome. And I feel that it's the same for alcohol. If you're feeding alcohol to the microbiome that thrive and crave those things, then you're giving them more energy and space to thrive in your body. When they say there's very little research done on the gut microbiome and how alcohol affects it, generally, they're talking about maybe 2 drinks per day for men and 1 drink per day for women. Scientists have found that compared to people who don't drink at all, the ones that do drink a low to moderate level have more diverse microbiome. Okay, so when I read this part of the article, I was like, huh? Like, you must be joking. Like, you're telling me that people who drink, men who drink maybe 2 drinks a day and women who drink 1 drink a day have more diversity in their gut microbiome compared to people who don't drink. I'm like, how does that make sense? Because alcohol is not very conductive to the health. So then it goes on to explain. I get a lot of questions when I'm reading. My mind is always just going. Excuse me. So those that drink red wine. So then it got more specific and said red wine. It's not talking about the vodkas, it's not talking about the tequilas, it's not talking about the whiskeys, it's talking about red wine. So those that drink red wine, or less to an extent, maybe white wine too, but mostly red wine, had a greater gut microbial diversity. And then I was like, how is that possible? Because alcohol, okay, this is diverging here because my brain was kind of trying to work it together. Alcohol is like a disinfectant. It kills things, right? Like, use alcohol for like a cut or whatever to disinfect things, and it kills things. So how does putting alcohol in your body increase your microbial diversity? Explain it. Okay. So this is what happened with the scientists and the research. They hypothesized that polyphenols, a compound found in grape skins, are in high concentration in red wine. Okay, here we go. Now it's making sense. So polyphenols are found in grape skins. So they found it in high concentration in red wine. Of course, red grapes making red wine. And the polyphenols are what allow the diverse microbial community. Here's the kicker. Here is the kicker. You don't need alcohol to find polyphenols. Thank God. They can be found in grapes, of course, and most often other fruits and vegetables, as well as many herbs and teas. So they can be found anywhere. You don't need to be drinking alcohol in order to have them. But I guess, and assuming and hypothesizing, that having 1 glass of red wine for dinner will probably increase the microbial diversity in your gut, because it is what? In high concentration of polyphenols found in grapes, which is in red wine. Okay. And last thing that it covers here, it says, consuming a variety of plant-based foods and fermented foods like yogurt, kombucha, kimchi can improve microbiome diversity. So that's really all that I picked up from the article. It does go a little bit more into other things, but it wasn't really relating to the topic or the questions that I had anymore. So here's what we found out. If you are drinking heavily and regularly, you have a higher concentration of unhealthy microbiome in your body, and those microbiome can contribute to the alcohol cravings. Having a balanced and healthy microbiome diversity is crucial to having a healthy and balanced body. So yes, consuming alcohol is fine if you're not doing it regularly and heavily, because it decreases the lining in your gut and it causes intestinal permeability, which then can lead to leaky gut. That was the question that I had about how alcohol affects your gut microbiome. I hope that was able to answer some of your questions if you ever have thought about it, or if you've ever questioned, what does this do to my body? Because I certainly did. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I would love to know. I want to answer the questions and find out more things that I may not even know about. Thank you for being here, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Ciao.